Hello, I'm Josh DeBonis, and this is Nick Mikros. We're BumbleBear Games. We're the co-designers of Killer Queen. This is Killer Queen. It's a 10-player action game. It's played by 2 teams of 5 people. It's highly strategic, and it can only be played in arcades. And so, if you haven't played it yet, here's just a quick taste of what the game is like.
Really well, that time he couldn't do it. Look at Seth just killing berries here and there. Who are the warriors for him? He's got Matt on what, abs? Speed?
I believe Matt is usually abs speed.
Okay.
Amandra is...
They got Matt and Amandra, boyfriend-girlfriend tag team of warriors. That's what they got. Nice takeout in the corner by Matt. Got to give him credit for that one. The kid plays a lot, huh?
The kid plays a lot.
Grinds.
There was a day when he played, the month where he played like 28 days in a row.
Oh my goodness.
Actually, I don't know if it paid off for him.
Look at this. Right about right.
Time.
Yeah.
Amandra, almost.
Man, that was
Amandra
close.
loses on skulls.
Nice kill by Seth with the looping kill of the warrior in the hive. And there it is, turnaround kill. Seth, military victory.
I did not see that coming.
You know, Logan had a hard time that round. So here we are, round 3.
This talk is not about the game per se. It's about belonging. It's about belonging to a community, belonging to a scene, and belonging to a family. So to illustrate this, I want to start with a story about our friend, Anna Thornton. We met Anna through our weekly Killer Queen League night at NYU in Brooklyn. We play there just about every week. Anna told us that she used to be really shy and introverted, and she had a very hard time making friends. And then she started hanging out at NYU and playing Killer Queen. And through the game and the people there, she really came out of her shell and became much more social. And in her own words, she had finally found her people. She's a photographer, and her photography was her way of contributing to the scene, one of her ways. But she was struggling to find work in New York as a photographer. She traveled to Chicago and played in a tournament there, and she realized that she liked the city and the people there, and it was a much more reasonable place for her to live than New York. So, because of that, she expanded her job search to also include Chicago and Portland, specifically because she knew people in both of those cities through Killer Queen. And she eventually landed a job in Chicago, and we all threw a big going away party for her in New York. It was sad because we all had gotten to know her well. At the time, we were working on some new side art for the game, and so we took the original prints off of the prototype cabinet, and all the players signed them and gave them to her as a going away present. And these are them hanging proudly in her new apartment in Chicago. And when she got to Chicago, she instantly had this support network of friends who she felt comfortable with. She felt like she had her place already in that city. She stayed with one of the players there, Megan, until she was able to find her own apartment. And some of the other players there helped her get temporary work until her new job started. So in a way, this is what Killer Queen is really all about.
Okay, so we realize that our game is unique. What we're doing is something really weird. It's weird for an esport because it's only in arcades. And it's weird for an arcade game for 2 reasons. 1, because it's a team-based esport. And 2, because most modern arcade games revolve around a model of a one-time thrill ride, whereas Killer Queen focuses on a model of recurring players and a high level of mastery. So clearly esports are becoming a huge part of gaming culture. So let's take the numbers of Facebook as a barometer of what that popularity looks like. Smash Brothers has 1.6 million likes on Facebook. Street Fighter has 2.1 million likes. League of Legends has a whopping 13.5 million likes. And wait for it, Killer Queen has 1,700 likes. So our community is clearly very small. We're just now getting to the point where we don't personally know all the hardcore players. So what's really unique is that for its size, the scene is incredibly active, incredibly creative, and very vocal. And when we think about the game, we think about it in terms of three spokes. One is the developers, us, and the second is the venue, and the third are the players. And that model is repeated over and over and over again in these regional microcosms. Okay, so the first spoke is the developers, namely us. And we're really on a mission to revolutionize arcades and really change the way that people think about playing games in public spaces. And we've always tried to set a tone that friendship is really more important than competition. And as the developers, we're pretty hands-off in the way that we let the community just grow and interact. But we're also very hands-on in the way that we participate in the community. We're active players in our own league night. Our new name is the Garbage Snail Kids. And we participate in all the online forums. We take input from the community very seriously. We're not corporate in any way, but we take a very hard stance on our opinions. But we always make it known that we are listening, that we're not just blowing people off. And we often travel to other cities to hang out with their local scenes, and players often have a lot of questions that we love to field, etc. And sometimes it really just feels like we're a band on tour. Which kind of makes sense, because we were a band on tour at some point. We were both in bands before we were game developers, so a lot of the scene feels very familiar. It's almost like coming home. We're not the only ones who've noticed it. This is from an article in the Chicago Reader. Ryan Smith wrote, "If Killer Queen has become the closest thing gaming has to punk rock, then Logan Arcade might as well be CBGB." And we were very flattered by that, but we also kind of thought, yeah, that's kind of true. All right, so the next spoke is the venue. And this is a poster for an annual event at NYU called No Quarter that we were fortunate enough to be a part of in 2013. And when we first started making this game, we really weren't thinking about community. We didn't realize this game was an e-sport. We barely knew what an e-sport was. And we didn't really know that it could support high-level play or spectatorship. And early on, our venue was really festivals, like No Quarter, like GDC, like California Extreme, etc. Eventually, we put the cabinet in a place called Logan Arcade in Chicago. And it was the first place that Killer Queen had a permanent home. So after a few weeks, we received an email from a Ryan Duncern, who invited us to a Facebook group called the Killer Queen Mercury Squad of Chicago. And we're like, what is this? So it turned out to be a group of hardcore fans who were using Facebook to organize their meetups at Logan Arcade. And so this was a moment of true realization for us. Like, this game suddenly became something much bigger than what we originally thought it was. And we realized at that point that the game could create a community without our intervention or involvement. And we definitely would not have realized that if it wasn't for Killer Queen finding a great home at Logan. And this really highlights the importance of a stable venue where players can reliably play the game anytime they like. Okay, so finally is the players, the final spoke. So according to Twitter, it's 80% male, 20% female, and according to their buying habits, they are 100% hipster. This data is also confirmed on Facebook. It's 81% male, 17% female, and the main age demographic is 25 to 34 with 54%. But, we don't really need to know these numbers to know that the community is really fiercely competitive, but at the same time, incredibly nice to each other. So we kind of think a lot about that, and we're like, well, one of the advantages that Killer Queen has is that our demographic tends to be regional. It's a little bit older, it's a little bit more mature, and because it's face-to-face, you're more likely to be nice to people that you're going to see week after week. And more importantly, they have a tendency to grow strong friendships beyond the game. So according to sociologists, there's 3 conditions crucial to making close friends. First is proximity. Second is repeated unplanned interactions. And third is a safe, comfortable setting. So it's important to note that these conditions are easily met when we're in high school or when we're in college, and it gets progressively harder as we get older. So our largest demographic is between 25 and 34. And these people are basically out of school, and it's starting to get a little bit harder to make friends. So let's look at these conditions through the lens of Killer Queen. So number 1, proximity. Well, the Killer Queen cabinet is explicitly designed to cram 10 people into the smallest space possible. Okay? It's kind of like getting on the subway in Japan. 2, repeated unplanned interactions. So these are facilitated by having a venue like a bar where players can come and go as they please, and then because they're all there to play Killer Queen, they're naturally going to interact with each other in several random ways. And the other part of it is that they have to actually cooperate with their teammates, so they are interacting in that way as well. Finally, a setting that is safe and comfortable. So there's 2 settings at play here. One is the bar, which is serving alcohol, and is also kind of a place where you go after work, you want to let loose, kind of letting your guard down. The other part of it is the game's magic circle, right? So people are naturally letting their guard down because they're playing a game together. So it's important to note that the players form friendships that transcend Killer Queen. They go out to bars, they go to dinner together, they go do karaoke, and they generally hang out a lot.
Killer Queen players, they have a very distinct culture, they have their own rituals, and even some celebrities within the scene. I think it's largely because of the social nature of the game and the fact that you can only play it at these very specific locations. Online, there's this rivalry between the different cities. They're constantly teasing and taunting each other, playfully usually. And the teams travel between cities to play each other fairly regularly, and it's getting more and more regular. Also, the physical separation of these players has led to these distinct regional subcultures within the game community. For example, New York is a very academic group. It's brimming with a lot of game developers, and they're known for a very aggressive military play style. Chicago is very social. They have conservative tactics, but they're very highly technical players. Portland, they used to have a reputation for being the bad boys, like stealing drinks and causing trouble and making scenes. From what we hear, they've kind of cleaned up their act a little bit, and they'll actually be defending their world title right here in San Francisco this weekend. San Francisco, they're more playful and more akin to how we originally envisioned the game. They're a little less competitive and maybe a little more cavalier. And then there's Indianapolis.
Yep.
So we've observed certain patterns in the development of these regional communities. First, there tends to be this big surge in the beginning. Then there's a period of shrinkage, or as we call it, colony collapse. And then, hopefully, and usually, regrowth and stabilization of the scene. So there's a couple reasons that this growth waxes and wanes. One of them is that there are sometimes toxic players that get involved in the community. It was particularly problematic in Portland. They relayed this story to us about that the scene kept getting smaller and smaller, and they were worried that it was going to collapse entirely. So some of the players started to investigate why that was, and they realized it was because there were some of these players who had a bad attitude and were creating a toxic environment, mostly through trash talking and being unwelcoming to new players. So they started ostracizing those individuals, and they wouldn't play with them or against them. And this self-policing encouraged those players, the toxic players, to either change their behavior and become socially acceptable to the group, or some of them just left. And then after that, the scene steadily started to grow again, and now it's doing well. There's a second reason that the groups tend to get smaller at times, which is that sometimes one or more teams really start to dominate. And because there's such a high level of high skill ceiling, it's sometimes difficult for new players to play against them. But the thing that works pretty well is that the players tend to self-balance each other. Once it becomes clear that there's a team that's undefeatable, that team tends to realize that it's no longer fun for them or really for anybody else. And so they break their team up and they distribute their players and their knowledge, and they kind of raise the level of everybody else, so it's a level playing field again. One of the problems we're having right now in New York is there's like 8 really great teams. So as new players show up, they get completely annihilated no matter who they play. And it's compounded by the fact that there's not really any other great venue for public play other than our weekly league night. So it's becoming more and more difficult to attract new players. Some of the solutions that various organizers are using to combat these problems is doing scramble and draft tournaments where we mix up players together randomly or evenly. And that works really well. It creates a very casual and more friendly experience. And another thing we've seen is more established teams sometimes shrinking down to 4 players and taking a new player under their wing for a night. It creates a better overall first-time experience for the new players, and they get better faster, and they feel like they're part of the scene quicker, and they're more likely to come back again. So you can't play Killer Queen on the internet, and you can't play Killer Queen at home. These are not necessarily technical limitations. These are deliberate choices that Nick and I made. However, the internet is still critical to the development of the game for several reasons. The first is that players use it to organize times to play together. It's particularly important since you need so many people to play it. They also use it to continue the conversation about the game at times that they're unable to play, or just to further their thinking and their strategizing. They do this not just within their groups, but between cities. They share information, and they also rib each other a lot. Most of the tournaments and a lot of the league nights are streamed online, and it's becoming more and more popular. This also helps the cities kind of share information and feel like they're part of a bigger group. And we just now introduced online stats that you can get through player cards. So I think all of these are ways that the game uses the internet, even though it's a physical game that is not actually really on the internet. There's also in each of these scenes, there's legends, myths, and a certain history to each scene. And I can't share that many of them just due to lack of time, but there's one that I want to share. It's the story of the Screen Slayer in Chicago. So it was the night before one of the really big tournaments. Everybody was at the arcade practicing, and some new guy showed up. And they thought he was a nice guy at first, but he got really, really drunk, and they beat him with the snail victory one too many times, and he freaked out, and he punched the screen and destroyed it. This turned into a big event, and there was a huge thread on Facebook and lots of discussion about it. They started making all these memes about it. Here's a couple that we really liked. That's the guy who did it. And so the next morning, James Barron, the tech at Logan Arcade, came to the rescue. He found a replacement TV and fixed it before the tournament started. And they took the old TV and they used it to write the brackets for the tournament on it. You can see it right here. And then the winning team took it home as a trophy. So belonging to a scene often means contributing to that scene. For some people, that means creating fan art like you see on these slides. Other people contribute in all different ways. Here's just some of the people that we could think of in New York and how they contribute to our particular local scene. We mentioned before Anna contributes through her photography. Our friend Alan is our #1 playtester. Charles Pratt, he contributes in so many ways, particularly organizing events and inspiring everybody. Matt Albrecht and Kevin Constantino are casters. Tiana Tan gives us food and fellowship. Luke Crane is our evangelist. Brian Kang teaches and coaches newbies. Hayden Kakesi is our champion. And there's so many other people that contribute in small, incalculable ways. And this is true across every scene. There's parallels to all these people in every city.
So as game designers, we can't really let all of you leave without talking about game design just a little bit. So in particular, we want to talk a little bit about how the community has impacted the game design. And in little ways that kind of go back and forth. And so the first one is the family portrait. So Kickstarter was the first group of people to get their own cabinet. They had it in their office, and they got really good really quickly. And, you know, they had a lot of people visiting, and so for easy wins, they would want to, like, make a little bit more of a challenge for themselves. So there's, like, a little frame that shows up around the winning condition at the end, and they decided that if they can get all the players of their team into that frame, they would call it the family photo finish. And so we thought that was kind of amazing and really hilarious. And so we worked it back into the game. And here's a little...
Can we get audio?
Audio?
Everybody's going. Make it happen. This could be it. Sail victory. And then... Where you at?
It is pretty amazing when it happens, actually. All right. So the second thing was early on, we were getting a lot of comments from the more hardcore players online that they really wanted to see stats in-game. They wanted to see it on the screen, and we were really reluctant and hesitant to do that. We felt that it would change the tone of the game, that new players and casual players would feel overwhelmed and maybe somewhat intimidated by that. And so we kind of just rejected it. But we kept thinking about ways that we could make these hardcore players happy. And the one solution that we're just really working on now and developing right now and testing at NYU is the idea of having player cards. So we're installing RFID readers into every cabinet, and basically you just walk up to the arcade cabinet, put your card down, and you can track all of your stats. It gives you something to do when you're not at the arcade, when you're obsessing about Killer Queen constantly, all the time, day and night. You can just look at your stats and salivate over them. Okay, then there was the design of the AI. So we got a lot of pressure from our publisher and from venues that are more casual to introduce AI when there's not when there's not 10 players to play the game. So that was an interesting challenge for us. We wanted to flesh out the game, but we still wanted to encourage people to recruit new players. We didn't want it to take the place of actual players. Because we know that that's kind of a little bit of the magic, right? So the obvious solution would have been to just make an AI that mimics human play. And we felt like that wasn't really good. So we chose to make an AI that purposely feels incredibly robotic, underpowered, and slow. And he kind of does the job, Mr. Bumblebot. He's got his own Twitter handle. And he kind of does the job, not particularly well, but well enough. And so this preserved all the social dynamics that have always been around the game. We have a new publisher and international distribution now. As of this month, we're actually selling cabinets again, which is great. Okay. Raw Thrills is the largest American publisher and is headed up by the designer of Robotron, Defender, and many other classics, Eugene Jarvis. I did not get paid to say that. Okay, and so we believe that this will, or at least they're telling us, that this will greatly expand Killer Queen's reach. And what we're wondering at this point is how an influx of more machines, because there's right now about 10?
10 public.
About 10 machines in public spaces. So at the point that we have 1,000 machines, what does our community look like? To that end, we're forming a national umbrella to guide these local scenes and help maintain a healthy community as it continues to expand. So one of our goals is to encourage new venues to create their own leagues and give them the tools to do so easily. And the other goal is to start an official national tournament. So we're super excited about all of that, and we think it's going to be great. All right, so in conclusion, we'd like to invite you to 2 events that are happening here in San Francisco this week at Brewcade. The first is tournament number 3, the Drone Wars, and that's going to be on Saturday at 2 o'clock. And we know that there's teams coming out from New York, Portland, and Chicago. It should be some really, really intense, interesting matches. And we encourage all of you to come out. You could also watch it on Twitch. And the other thing is League Night, which is on Wednesday and happens every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. It's at 2200 Market Street. Okay. Thank you, everyone. And I guess we have about 3 minutes if anyone has any questions.
Are you guys coming out to the tournament this tournament?
Hell yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah.
I play here in San Francisco a lot. I was just wondering if I really was interested in the cards. Do you know if we're going to get them here?
You are going to get them.
Okay.
You are going to get them, but it's going to be a little while. They're still in development, and we're testing stuff and tweaking it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
we're planning to retrofit all of the existing cabinets to support it.
Okay. And there's the Killer Queen League. Is that like a website up already?
Right now, it just has our logo on it, so it's totally under construction.
So yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thanks.
We'll see you Saturday.
Yeah.
Do you, go ahead.
Oh.
Do you guys think what you're doing is kind of part of a resurgence in the arcade model, or are you maybe more of an outlier at the moment?
Yes and yes.
We definitely plan on doing more games in this vein ourselves, and we hope that other people are inspired to as well.
And actually, we have, other developers are starting to ask us about how to get started and how to do things. And so maybe.
Thank you.
What advice do you have from like the business side, how you can make a living doing this? Like, do you make enough money to continue doing this?
That's an excellent question. I would advise getting a job at JP Morgan Chase. They are awesome at paying. It's really good. And then maybe if you can like work really hard at night, that would be good. Yeah.
A little more to the point. I think it is really hard, and I mean we are at the point where we're starting to make some money with it. And I think it's becoming clear to us that yes, it is possible to make money in this space. We don't know yet how reproducible it is. I think the key is building a prototype in a cabinet and putting it on location in an arcade and testing it. I think that's like the most important first step to get a sense of if your game can be successful in that way.
Josh, with your practical answers. Yes?
Hey, I'm just wondering, is your cab actually designed to make it a strong spectator experience, or is it really just something for the 10 people who are actually playing to enjoy?
Okay, that's a really good question. And yes, We've done a lot of games for public spaces, and spectatorship has always been an essential part of it. And so, yeah, it's designed to kind of make a splash.
I don't know. I don't have any idea how much an arcade game costs. Can you just give us a ballpark of what this would cost?
Should we?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I never said this, $13.5 thousand.
All right, and actually, this perfect timing. We're out of time. We'll be across the hall in the wrap-up room right over there, and we'll see you guys at Brewcade, I hope, and around GDC. Thanks so much.